Baby dedications and baptisms are happening on Sunday, October 22nd at both services. If you have questions or would like to sign up, email me at nancy@lakeviewchurch.com.
Parent Q is one of the tools that we're using at Lakeview Kids to help work together to build a foundation of faith for our kids. So you can use this tool in the morning when you wake your kids up, you can use it in the evening when you tuck them in for bed, and you can use it during the day when you're driving your kids around to different activities. There are ways to talk about faith and life. You can pick this card up when you pick your kids up in front of the classrooms, and you can also download this app on your device, and it'll give you a sense of the stories we've been telling, the lessons we've been teaching. Let's do this. Let's raise a new generation to be shaped by God and live for Him.
Hi, my name is Deanna. The reason I joined a small group was because I needed community, and Lakeview is huge, so I decided to join a small group. My small group ended up being way more important to me than I thought it would be, just because the ladies who were there ended up being mentors to me and speaking into my life truth that I needed to hear, and it was only every second week, and I wish it was every week because I looked forward to it every time. If you're considering a small group or you aren't sure if it's for you, people are valuable and they give more to you than you can realize, and yeah, it's worth your time. You need people, you need friends.
Small groups are smaller groups of Lakeview folk that meet together to cultivate transforming relationships with God and with one another. You should try one. Interested? Visit me at the newsstand or email me at allison@lakeviewchurch.com.
I decided to take Lakeview 101 because I wanted to get more involved with the church, and I felt like it was the natural next step. I learned a little bit about the history of Christianity, Lakeview Church, and Free Methodism. If you're thinking about taking the class, I would say do it. It was definitely worthwhile, and it really made me feel like more of a part of the church.
Lakeview 101 is for those interested in becoming members at Lakeview Church. It's being offered Thursday, October 19th from 6 to 9 p.m. Supper is provided, so please register by emailing allison@lakeviewchurch.com.
Hello, my name is Marlon Stangland, and I serve as chair of the board here at Lakeview. We have a great group of people on the board, and we'd love to have you join us. If you're a member of Lakeview and interested in serving on the board, please pick up a nomination form at the information desk. Nominations need to be in by October 15th, so please get them in quickly. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Barry.
I'm Rachel.
And the reason we took the TechWise Family Formation 3 class was because we have kids getting to that age where the internet is a huge concern for us.
We learned to not let your kids have data. Where has it led? My kids don't have data. My kids don't have data. We chose not, so that we have more of a handle on what they're accessing. If you're considering taking this class, I would just say you have nothing to lose. Go for it. It's convenient. It was very well done.
Allison talks honest truth about what her family experiences are, and the other instructor, Justin, stayed and talks to everyone in the room, from the lowest knowledge of computers to the more, or people who think they have more knowledge. Justin's big enough nerd for all of us.
Yeah, he's really nice too.
So if you're like Barry and Rachel and it's time to start thinking about how to manage tech in your home, this next Formation 3 class is for you. It's happening October 15th during the 11 a.m. service in the atrium. There's no need to register, so just come join us.
So, speaking of lakeviewchurch.com, there's a little gift that we want to pass on to you, something we're going to try to see if it actually works and is helpful for you. We want to give some, this is the artwork for our new Job series. We want to give you some phone wallpaper to have on your phone. I'll explain what it is, but let me just tell you where to find it first. If you go on to www.lakeviewchurch.com, you see where that yellow arrow is pointing? It says wallpaper. If you click that, you'll see this image here that's on your left. And that's the artwork for this series with the word pray below it. And the reason we're putting this out there, or experimenting with it, is that, you know what, if you're like me, you're looking at your phone 20, 30, 40, 50 times a day, and maybe a soft, gentle reminder to pray, to stop, to reflect. And even if there's things that pop up in this series that God is talking to you about, hopefully this will be a connection point for you. So super easy. You go on the website, you get to that page, you save it to your photos, you turn it into your desktop background or wallpaper, and then it should look like this one here on my left, which is the correct placement of the image. Because I may have sent an earlier version to my wife in the week, and I said, hey, try this, see what it's like, and she put it on her phone all wrong. We may have had a fight about it. Somebody in our house is obviously a control freak, and you know who it is. Anyways, so I'm showing you now that is the correct placement for that image. Yeah, download it. Hopefully it helps you out. And also, as we hop into this brand new series, a couple of resources I want to suggest to you. The first one, Job for Everyone, is a good, solid little resource. It'll take you through every single chapter and unpack it, give you some good info, some things to reflect on, and some really good applicable pieces. So if you want to do it on your own or with your sermon-based small group, that's a great one to get. Also, the other book here, the McKibben book here, is a little skinny guy. And he's not going to go through every single chapter, but he'll grab the big ideas, he'll explain them a bit, and then he'll push it back onto you, things to ponder, things to think about. And again, both those resources are available both in our bookstore and in the library, so pick one up if you like. Okay, here we go, starting with this question. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why does it seem like every single morning when you open your phone or take a look at the news, something else has happened? Some other calamity, some other chaos, some other terrible thing, something else is broken that now needs to be fixed. And in the middle of all that, how is God? How is it possible? If God is actually a good God, how does he let all those things continue to happen? How does he allow this world to continue to spiral out of control? Because I want to know. I want to know why children get sick. I want to know why there's earthquakes and floods and tornadoes. I want to know why it seems like the people who are innocent always seem to get the short end of the stick. So then over the next 5 weeks, we're going to look into some of those questions and challenges and more. And we're going to look at them through the story of Job. Job, who is an upright man, an innocent man who loses everything. So this month, we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to live faithfully through disappointment and defeat. We're going to reflect on what it means to coexist with suffering and injustice. And we're going to explore what it means to hang on to what matters, even if there is no happy ending. So then the story of Job is for people who are about ready to give up. This is a story for people who have some really hard questions for God. And essentially that's what it is. It's a story. So you might ask, hey, was the story of Job, did it actually happen as it was written? Maybe. Was Job an actual person? Maybe. So tell me, is this story fact or fiction? Maybe. Because here's the thing. Job is a true story, whether it actually happened or not. Or maybe a better way to think of it is like this. This exact same story keeps playing over and over and over again. Why? Because it's not just Job's story. This is our story. This is the human story. So as we hop into this book, let's be really smart and grab it by the right handle. We've used that metaphor before. Different books of the Bible require you to pick them up by different handles. If it's a historical book, you pick it up by that handle and read it like a history book. If it's a poetry book, you read it like a poetry book. So what handle do we grab Job by? What kind of book is it? So my suggestion to you this morning would be grab it by a handle and treat it a little bit like a parable. Because parables are not prescriptive. We're not going to get 5 easy steps to overcome suffering in Job. It doesn't work that way. Other parts of the Bible talk that way. Job is not like that. But Job is more descriptive, where it pushes questions back on us. And it says, where do you need to be aware of God? Or aware of what's going on inside you? Or aware of what's happening in your world? And then how will you discern how to move forward? That's the kind of book Job is. And I'm not going to lie to you. We're going to push some heavy stuff this day and the next Sunday and the Sunday after that. I'm going to maybe poke you where it hurts a little bit, maybe open up a can of worms. It's going to be a bit of a heavy series, but I think we're up for it, and I think it's a timely one. So you want to do it? I mean, like we're here, we might as well hop in, right? Okay, I'm not going to read all 42 chapters, just a little bit here and there, but we're going to start with chapter 1, right off the top, and it goes like this. Job was a man who lived in Uz. He was an honest inside out, a man of his word who was totally devoted to God and hated evil with a passion. And he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He was also very wealthy, 7,000 head of sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 teams of oxen, 500 donkeys, and a huge staff of servants, the most influential man in all the East. So his sons used to take turns hosting parties in their homes, always inviting their 3 sisters to join them in their merrymaking. And when the parties were over, Job would get up early in the morning and sacrifice a burnt offering for each of his children, thinking, maybe one of them sinned by defying God inwardly. And Job made a habit of this sacrificial atonement just in case they had sinned. And one day when the angels came to report to God, Satan, who was the designated accuser, came along with them. And God singled Satan out and said, what have you been up to? And Satan answered God, well, going here and there, checking things out on earth. And God said to Satan, well, have you noticed my friend Job? There's no one quite like him, honest and true to his word, totally devoted to God and hating evil. And Satan retorted, so do you think that Job does all of that out of the sheer goodness of his heart? Why, no one ever had it so good. You pamper him like a pet, make sure nothing bad ever happens to him or his possessions, or his family or his possessions, and bless everything he does. He can't lose. But what do you think would happen if you reached down and took away everything that is his? He'd curse you right to your face, that's what. And God replied, well, we'll see. Well, go ahead. Do what you want with all that is his. Just don't hurt him. And then Satan left the presence of God. And the story goes on to say that Job loses all 10 of his children, all of his wealth, all of his position, all of his power, and his dignity. And remember, this is an innocent man. This is an upright man who is spiritually conscious. Yet it seems from these opening verses that his life is just being toyed with. And we see it especially in this scene between God and Satan, or your Bible might say the Satan. And we've mentioned this before, and I'll say it again. Satan isn't a proper name. It's not like Mr. Satan. Instead, it is the embodiment, a direct and aggressive opposition to God. So your Bible might say the Satan, it might say the accuser or the challenger. Whatever the name, it's not good. So there's an attack that's put underway in these opening verses. And actually, if you look closely, the attack isn't on Job. The attack is actually on God. And Job just happens to be in the fallout zone. And here's why. If you grew up when Job grew up, in these ancient times, the gods were considered to be just irritable and unrealistic, maybe even childish in the way they would take offense. And there were so many gods to think about, so many gods you knew, some you didn't know. So what you would end up doing is offering sacrifices and giving gifts and, doing one thing after the other just to appease these gods, just to make sure that everyone is happy, because you don't know if you said something wrong or did something wrong or went somewhere wrong. So you were worried that one of these gods would just give it to you. So you would offer those gifts. You would offer those sacrifices. Why? Because these gods were irrational. They didn't really care about you. They just needed to be kept happy. And that is the mindset, that is the thinking, that is the feeling right here when Satan talks to God. He challenges him and he says, you know what? You're just like one of those other overly sensitive gods. You're just out to get what you want from people. You're one of those sensitive deities that needs to be appeased. You're one of those other common gods that is just waiting to be offended. And he says, the only reason that Job worships you and does things for you is because he is scared of you. He is scared of what you might do to him. Or maybe, he says, he just follows you because you give him whatever he wants. You're good to him, he's good to you, and vice versa. Job is just working an angle. He's just looking to save his own skin. He's just fulfilling a contract and nothing more. It's just a deal, God. It's a deal that can be broken. As soon as you stop being good to him, he is going to stop worshiping you. If you protect him, he's in. If you don't, he's out. Because you know what? You're not really a God that's worthy of being worshiped because you have to pay people to honor you. So time out right there, and let's ask ourselves a question. Is that true? Is that the kind of God that we serve? Let me make it a little bit more personal. Is that why you're here today? Are you here today and you identify as a Christian because you see God as a sensitive deity? That you got to do stuff for God in order for him to love you? And if you step out of line, he's going to hate you. So you'd better show up to church when you can, and you better give, and you better volunteer, and you better be nice to the pastor, or else God is going to be super mean to you. He's going to hurt you, and you're not going to get what you want. Is that how you see God? Is that how you have related to him? Is that the kind of God that is worth believing in? Because when we describe God in that way, or in the way the challenger is describing him, it sounds like God's relationship with humanity is just like any other contract. You hold up your end of the bargain, and I'll hold up my end of the bargain. And as soon as you fail, then I'm out. If you let go, then I'm letting you go too. But here's the thing. When we look throughout the scriptures at the way that God deals with or is in relation with his people, it's never talked about in terms of contract. It's always talked about in terms as a covenant. And there's a difference. And I gave this illustration maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but maybe it's worth revisiting. Maybe think about it like this. So if you are in a contract relationship with somebody, it's like you come together and you shake on it, you make a deal. But if one person fails in that contract, your partner doesn't do what he said he's going to do, you just let go and you are out. Or if they do something wrong and they just slip out of your grip, that's it, they're done. So one weighs on the other. Unless both sides are being fulfilled, well, you know what, that's the only thing that holds the contract together. But a covenant is different than that. That would look more like this, that someone grabs you by the wrist and then you grab them by the wrist. And if somehow something happens in life and things go sideways and things go wrong, or you get weak or you're broken and you let go, the other side holds on tightly when you can't. And that is the image and the picture of we see in covenant in the scriptures. Because a contract, you're only responsible for your side of the agreement. But in a covenant, you're actually responsible for both sides and for both parties. You put yourself on the line for everything. And that's how we see God relate to his people. So then, if we believe, if we love, if we honor, if we serve, if we obey God because of who he is, and not because of the perks, and not because of the perils, it changes how we understand his good news. Think of it like this. The biggest shift for me was when my view of the gospel switched from being retributive to restorative. So simply put, we as Christians, we don't believe in karma. We don't believe in this for that, tit for tat. God doesn't work in a contract kind of way. God holds on to you even if you let go. But here's the nutty thing, right? Because many times our formation of our thoughts around God is that he is retributive, that he is waiting for you to screw up and then he's going to get you. Is that the picture you have? Is it that contract picture? Or is it the covenant picture, which is restorative, that says, oh, you've screwed up. Oh, you're broken. Oh, you're unhealthy. You know what? I'm just going to hang around and help you get better. So what this does for us is unearth some pretty deep and heavy questions, and I'll throw them at you this morning. Question is this: how have you related to God? Is it under contract or is it under covenant? Do you see a God who is retributive or a God who is restorative? Which one makes more sense? Which one feels right? Which one has shaped your thinking so far? And what will shape your thinking moving forward? And if you're brave enough to deal with that question, I'll ask you to go one step deeper and ask you to consider this. That are you able to love God and obey him and serve him and hold on, even if things don't turn out the way you want them to turn out? Even if your life doesn't end up as a happy ending. That's tough. Told you this would poke some soft spots. Back to the story. God accepts Satan's challenge, which feels super weird, right? And why does he do that? I think it's this. I think it's because God actually believes in and trusts in Job. Just like he believes in and trusts in you and me to love him because he is God. But to that, the Satan, the challenger, fires back and says, sure, take their family, take their possessions, but what if you take their health? So Satan answered, a human would do anything to save his life. But what do you think would happen if you reached down and took away his health? He'd curse you to your face, that's what. God said, all right, well, go ahead. You can do what you like with him, but mind you, don't kill him. And Satan left God and struck Job with terrible sores. Job was ulcers and scabs from head to foot, and they itched and oozed so badly that he took a piece of broken pottery to scrape himself and then went and sat on a trash heap among the ashes. And his wife said, still holding on to your precious integrity? Are you? Curse God and be done with it. And he told her, you're talking like an empty-headed fool. We take the good days from God. Why not also take the bad days? And not once through all of this did Job sin. He said nothing against God. And this is where the action actually starts in the story. This is where things get really fun, because here's this. That in these opening verses of Job, we see this word bless and this word curse show up a few times. And the interesting piece is this, is that the word bless and the word curse are actually interchangeable. They're kind of sort of the same term. It's as if they're tightly wound together. They're a complete package. One comes with the other. And as we look back into the story, it's like saying that right in the middle of Job's curse is the blessing that God is there, that he is present, that he is waiting. Now, what if we were able to see our own situation in the same way? And hear me out here. I'm not trying to minimize your life or the chaos or the trouble or the sickness or whatever that might be a part of your world. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not trying to make faith really syrupy or sweet or sentimental here. This is not some fake silver lining I'm talking about. What we're talking about right here is where Christianity rears its sharp and fierce teeth. This is the crux of what we hold on to. That somehow, God is present, God is near, God is holding us tightly. Where? Exactly where it hurts the most. Where you're most vulnerable, where you're weak, where you're broken, and where you're powerless. Where you have no control over the outcome. And this is why it's really important for us to understand God as a God who redeems and restores and one that isn't retributive. Because if it was a retributive God who's waiting to get at you, I wouldn't want him in my most broken place, because that would scare me. And that would mean he would know my dirt, and maybe he would punish me further. Or maybe a retributive God would go so far and just be at arm's length from us and say, you know what, you're too dirty, you're too smelly, you're too sinful, I'm out, I can't be close to you. But a restorative God, well, that's exactly where he wants to be. That's exactly where he is supposed to be. Where else would we need him to be? And hey, listen, you might be the Job character in this. You might be the wife character in this story. She's having nothing of it. And you know what? I don't blame her. I'm not going to villainize her. I'm not going to make a cheap joke at her expense. Because you know what? She just lost everything too. And there's Job, who's holding on, for now. And in the middle of his mounting grief, he prays this prayer that we didn't have a chance to read, so I'll say it to you now. He goes on to say that God gives and God takes, God's name ever be blessed. So in the middle of his pain and his suffering, he offers a blessing. He offers praise to God. And that's another one of those really tough questions right here that we need to deal with. So I push it back out to you. Are you able to offer praise during whatever grief or chaos or trouble that you currently find yourself in? And again, hear me clearly here. This isn't one of those cheap, well, it's just a blessing in disguise kind of thing. No, this is a God gives and God takes, God's name ever be blessed kind of thing. What if you're Job? What if you're going to be Job one day, where you lose everything that you have worked for? Family and friends and finances and positions and dignity and health. What are you going to do? Are you going to hold on tight? Or are you going to let go? And that might be the very question that you're dealing with here this morning. You show up after a long week and only know you know what you've walked through, and you're about ready to let go. Well, if you're here this morning and that's the headspace that you're in, may I remind you once again that this is where Christianity rears its sharp and fierce teeth. It's where you and I hold on, even though it makes no rational sense to hold on. Because somehow in this, somehow in the middle of our mess, that's where God meets us. That's where we discover him. That's where he does his best work. And he doesn't have to be coerced to be there. He doesn't have to be baited. We don't have to trick him to be there. We don't have to be scared that he meets us there. But he's there in solidarity with us, sharing in our pain. So as you're able to hang on to all of that, let me add just one more piece to the puzzle this morning. The story for us concludes like this morning. The three of Job's friends heard all of the trouble that had fallen on him, and each traveled from his own country, and they went together to Job to keep him company and comfort him. And when they first caught sight of him, they couldn't believe what they saw. They hardly recognized him. They cried out in lament, ripped their robes, and dumped dirt on their heads as a sign of their grief. And then they sat with him on the ground. 7 days and nights they sat without saying a word. And they could see how rotten he felt and how deeply he was suffering. So the last scene for us here this morning is silence. Everybody is quiet. Job, his wife, his friends, God, the challenger. So what does that mean for you and I? How do we deal with this last piece? What do we do with it? Well, I want to offer 3 possibilities, 3 routes that may grab you where you're at this morning. Maybe one of these fits you today. For those of you who are here this morning that are walking closely with someone who's walking through grief and pain, maybe consider this, that the silent sharing of suffering is a true manifestation of fellowship. Just being there. Just being there in quiet. Or for those of you who are here this morning who are trying to make it under your own strength, maybe consider this. Simply believe that somebody else, by his death and resurrection, has made it all right. Say thank you, and then shut up. Or for those of you here this morning who are walking through your own chaos, through your own trouble, and maybe you're looking for answers and reasons that don't exist, I offer you one last route. But sometimes no explanation is sufficient to account for suffering. The only decent thing is silence and the sacraments. And that's our invitation to the Lord's table here this morning. So I'm going to invite my friends to come forward who are going to help serve Ashley and Nate and Justin and Sarah. And in these next few moments, I'm going to invite you to come forward wherever you find yourself. Whether you are tracking with someone in pain, whether you're trying to muscle your own way through it, whether you're looking for answers that don't exist, the invitation to you today is to come to the Lord's table. Why? Because it is a symbol, it is a moment, it is the presence of God himself saying, I am there for you. I'm right here, exactly where you need me to be.